Up next on Inside the SCCA, checking one off the bucket list. Welcome to episode 236, I think, of Inside the SCCA. Brian Bielanski here, and I got a great show ahead for you tonight. It's a recurring guest, guys and gals who get to come back more than once, Mr. Ogburn. Get to come back. I shouldn't say this because anybody who I haven't asked back more than once is going to think they stunk, but no, that's not true. But we have a handful of go-to people who we get back on the show, and they give us great info, and they do cool stuff, and Dave Ogburn certainly checks that box. Hello, Dave. How are you, sir?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me back.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going good here. And we brought you back on the show because you have done something really, really cool, which is always kind of what we're talking about is cool stuff. And the last time you were on the show, we talked about you winning this little lap around America thing.
Right.
And the first time we had you on the show, it's because you were a test driver for a tire brand that might be over my shoulder here.
Might be right there.
Might be right there. I actually pointed. Right. Usually when I look like some
you
sort
did.
of weird,
you did the correct. You did the weatherman.
Got
That's
to
good.
the right shoulder, which I never do.
Yeah.
I never do that.
Right.
But this time you went and a theme that we've had on the show several times is we talk to people who have gone overseas and gone and raced in different countries and what the process is for that. And you went and checked a really cool one off the list. But before we get to that, let's get caught up on what you've got going on these days. Last time we had you on, you were working for Goodyear. This time,
True.
You're doing a little something different. Tell us what's going on.
Slightly different. Yeah, it's a little bit of a not necessarily a career change, but yeah, kind of a way I am working change. But so I left Goodyear after 15 years, and it was a really hard decision. But yeah, now I basically run my own business, and I'm a independent test driver. So I'm a contract test driver. So I have a contract with a major OEM that makes electric vehicles here in the States, and I've worked with a few other tire companies as well, but I'm testing in San Angelo still at Goodyear's Proving Ground some as well, still working with Goodyear, but not for Goodyear. And I've traveled to a few other test tracks, around Texas and in Ohio, and so I'm still in automotive testing and still primarily in tires. But it's the main reason was with my wife and I both working full time and two young kids, and the racing hobby / career, whatever you want to call it at this point, it's right. It started to get pulled in many directions, and so I have a little more control over my schedule. So I'm mostly part time in the way I'm working and testing, and then I'm able to expand in the driver coaching that I was doing. So nice. A little more coaching. A little less in the office work, but so far so good. I've been doing it about 6 months, and so it's been a strange transition. So I miss the guys that I worked with, and I miss a lot of things that I got to do at work. And who knows, where things will go from here. But yeah, that's where I am a single person business right now, an LLC, and I have a contract with a few different companies.
Nice. It's got to be kind of cool. You obviously, in your years working for Goodyear, they are kind of one of the gold standards when it comes to tires. And they get that way by having people like you become a test driver and putting all of the tires through their paces. And that has given you the opportunity to kind of be an authority in that area, which makes you very, I would guess, very popular amongst the other OEMs and other, to kind of be able to have your knowledge in their database when it comes to having you give your feedback, right?
Yeah, it's a very small world. In a lot of ways, it's like racing where, kind of everybody knows everybody, and you have people that have jumped around from different companies, and so you have contacts throughout the industry, and that's sort of how this came about was, working with different OEMs through my previous role with Goodyear. But yeah, a lot of it, wouldn't have been possible without the team that we had at Goodyear and the training that I was able to get through my job, which I've also, has been instrumental in how I coach and how I train drivers. And so, yeah, I owe an immense amount to Goodyear and the opportunities that they gave me over the 15 years. And so we're still a Goodyear family. My wife still works for Goodyear, so we're still half in, and I'm a big fan of the brand and root for the Team Goodyear guys when they go do one lap without me. It
Yeah.
kills me a little bit that I'm not able to do it anymore. But I wish Josh and Nick all the success, and love seeing what they're doing. So yeah, I owe an immense amount to Goodyear for the opportunities that I was able to get to train as a test driver and learn. And it's a very small world in the test driver community. And so, like you said, it's those contacts become valuable, and I'm trying to build a little business out of this, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I still have a good relationship with Goodyear and the guys that I worked with, and the company as a whole. So yeah, it's exciting and also a little bit terrifying at times because I don't have the steady salary anymore. So it's kind of up to me to make things work.
Hold on one second. I don't do this very well. I'm actually going to go off camera for a second and then come back because there's a visual aid that I need here. Hold on.
Okay. There we go.
It's like the hat dance. I didn't think about it before we started, but this is a perfect time for me to make a little announcement that Goodyear is returning to Inside the SCCA as the official sponsor for our runoffs coverage this year.
All right.
So while we're doing all the Goodyear talk, I want to take the opportunity to say that and thank Jay for continuing to support us through all of what we do. Every year we've gone to the runoffs with the show, and Goodyear's been our title sponsor every time. So they're a big protector, a big supporter, I should say, of this SCCA with the B-Spec car now, B-Spec tire and everything.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a big thing there, and nothing but respect for the Goodyear folks, and I love that. And speaking of the one lap, I've told you this before. In the next year or two, I'm going to be doing that, and now I know a potential ringer to be part of the one lap effort. So don't think your one lap career is over, Mr. Ogburn.
Good. I hope it's not.
It's going to be good times. Good times. All right. So I also, when you were talking about your new stuff, and by the way, having the missus still working for Goodyear, and having when you decide to go freelance or go part time, it's always good to have a partner who has the full time job with the health benefits. Yes. And all of that kind of stuff. So
100%.
I've been down that road before. So
it would not have been possible without her. There's no doubt.
Because kids, they never want to go to the pediatrician, and they never get the sniffles, right?
No, and they definitely don't have their tonsils taken out a few weeks ago. And spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So 100%.
That's good stuff. So while you were giving us the update, I pulled out my phone and started the timer, because the episode, I like to keep the episodes under an hour. And you threatened me with a good time, Dave, by saying, we might be able to talk for 2 hours on this show about this thing. And I promised you that I would make sure we keep on time. So
fair enough.
The time is here to talk about the bucket list that we're getting right at today. So we've had Austin Varco on the show. He went to England and raced Spec Miata, or the English version of Spec Miata. We've had Jason Pribble on the show several times. He was our guest at episode number 1 of Inside the SCCA, and he is in Europe right now trying to climb the open wheel ladder in Europe. And as any of us who follow this sport know, that is a bitchin' difficult thing to do.
Yeah, difficult. I wish him the best.
Yeah, so he was in GB4 this year, which is the British version of F4, and has had some success and just great SCCA family trying to live the dream. So, but I've never had anybody on the show who went to race in Germany. I think I've kind of now given it away.
Yeah.
You've now been to the Nürburgring a couple times, right? Twice.
Yeah, so I've raced there now twice. I was very fortunate. Speaking of the Goodyear career, I got to go several times for training and testing in the industry pool.
Okay.
So I was able to get some laps and experience. It had been, let's see, I went in 2014, 15, and 16 a couple of times with Nick, like who you've met, and
Yep.
my co-driver from one lap, and Nick and I went over there and learned it together. Nick was testing tires for what was then the development for the 6th gen Camaro program. And a couple of the guys that we went over there with just set some laps for the Corvette that just came out. So it's cool to see familiar faces getting some publicity, doing cool things over there as well. But yeah, I went in 2016, and then at the end of that program, I didn't really know when I would get the opportunity to go back. And so my co-drivers in endurance racing right now with Loopy Tortilla Motorsports, Judson Holt and Denny Stripling did, like, to use your term, they did the bucket list trip in 2023 and did a race at the ring. And as with most things, similar to kind of events like One Lap of America, you say you do it once and the needle goes in, and then it goes in harder and you want to do it again. And so what became an annual trip, or a one-time trip, became, hey, let's do this once a year. And I had the opportunity to go with them last year, and we can get into some of the nitty-gritty details, but it is somewhat complicated to race there, and for good reason. It's in the world of buying seats and going and renting a seat there. If you are a German and you want to come over and run in WRL, or you want to come and run in SRO or in IMSA, it's, there's some licensing and things you have to go through, but for the most part, it is the application and then the signing of a check
Right.
that mainly gets you that opportunity. And with the Nürburgring, there's some of that as well, but there are some extra steps. There is a specific permit that you have to race at the Nürburgring. And so when I went there last year, so the main series is NLS, so Nürburgring Landstrecken Series, which is basically the Nürburgring Endurance Series.
Got it.
Super cool series, super fun. It's like a combo of WRL and kind of IMSA GTD. So everything from like full factory BMW, Porsche, Mercedes, down to two buddies that built a Honda Civic or an MX-5 or a Renault something or other and go racing. And you're all on track at the same time. But like I said, you have to have this specific license. And when we planned this trip last year, there happened to not be a class for me to take. And so there was a race on Saturday. There was the NLS. It was a 6-hour race, and it was Judson and Denny and another spec racer driver from Texas named Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
And I was going to be the fourth. And we went back and forth, and I was ultimately not able to compete in that race. But there's a sort of a sub series, which is, a really solid championship in its own right, but it's called RCN, and I'm not going to pretend to pronounce that one in German. That one's all German. But I think the N is for Nürburgring. I got that part. But RCN is another way to earn what's called your B permit, your Nürburgring permit B, which allows you to race in NLS. And you have to have an A permit to race in a GT3, a Porsche Cup car, or a GT4 car.
Right.
So it's based on power to weight. But frustratingly, last year, the RCN race was the day after the NLS race. So instead of being able to do RCN and then NLS, I did RCN the day after. So it was still, an absolute like dream come true. Because when I was going to the Nürburgring for work, I had done research on these series. RCN, back then it was called VLN. And NLS is the same series as VLN. It's just a rebrand. Like the
Right.
company that owns it is still called VLN.
Sure.
And some German, a German will probably get in the chat and tell me that I'm wrong, but that's at least my American understanding of it. But I at that time that I was going over to the Nürburgring was earlier in my career, financially, but also I wasn't road racing yet, and so I didn't have racing license in the States, and so that made it a lot harder to try to take advantage of maybe Goodyear buying me a plane ticket,
Sure.
and then I happen to be here, and there's a race, and here's some money, I would like to go do it. I just the kind of the stars never aligned, and when we finished the program in 2016, and I really had no testing avenue that I thought would send me back. I remember my last lap I did in the industry pool. It was in a 5 Series BMW or something, and there's log in it. Come in, and I remember just kind of saying goodbye to the place, thinking like I had a couple of fun trips. I got way more laps than I ever thought. I got paid to come over here. Like this is the end of my Nürburgring experience, and I couldn't really think of how I would end up back there. And one of my regrets from doing it was that I didn't run a race while I was there. I didn't just pony up and pull out a credit card and make a dumb decision that I would make for a cool story. And so when Denny and Judson, kind of, pitched us going last year, I was able to make it work and go with them. And so even though I wasn't able to compete in the NLS, I ran the RCN race, had a ton of fun, and I was able to get the B permit, thinking at some point if we go back, then I'll be able to join the club. And so yeah, RCN is a little bit different in the fact that it's actually a time trial. So you're all on the track at the same time, and you're competing over 13 laps. And there's certain laps that are timed competition laps and certain laps that are like in and out laps. And so it's like a combination of a kind of like an Isle of Man style time trial, multi-lap time trial. So it's not your fastest lap, it's your total time.
Got it.
But then for the in and the out laps, there is a component of it where you have to do it like a regularity style. So you do your first lap in whatever speed. It can be the limit, it can be sub-limit, and then you have to do another lap within 10 seconds of that lap time. And
so it's almost like bracket racing in drag racing
for one component of
right,
it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then and so the way you're graded is how fast you end up doing 8, they call them competition laps over the 13. And so those are as fast. I mean, it is a time trial. So it is lowest score wins. But if you mess up the kind of time, speed, distance part of it, or the consistency part of it, you get penalties. So if you finish 20 seconds, faster or slower on your regularity run, you get some 30-second penalty or something. I don't remember the exact rules.
It's kind of road rally.
Yes, road rally was the term I was looking for. It's
bracket racing and drag racing.
Right. Yeah, so it's a combo road rally. So it's a real very specific, super German.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they came up with this format, but it's a fun challenge, and it's super competitive. So I was able to do that. Had a decent class of cars, some good drivers to compete against, and was able to get my permit, and then thinking, we'll see if I get an opportunity to go back. And same group of guys, Denny and Judson, we're partners in crime. Made the pitch to go back over again and this year, and there was a new. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say before we get to that, because I'm sure there's some great stories, because you are the storyteller. I just find the whole process a little interesting because, from an SCCA standpoint, SCCA is a member of ASUS, which is a member of the FIA, and it was for Austin and for Jason, the getting licensed part was actually fairly upfront. The SCCA signed them off to get their FIA license,
Right.
and
Yes. And I did that through the SCCA, and that part was simple. They were
right,
very helpful. I went through, I went through the SCCA office. I was able to get my FIA-C license
right,
with the international checkbox
right,
that allows you to race overseas. And that license isn't obscenely expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not
right.
obscenely expensive. But it's the SCCA. I think they turned my license around in less than 2 weeks. I mean, they
Right.
were amazing.
Yeah.
So it was, in that aspect of it, it was really nice to have the home team going to bat for you.
Yeah.
You call somebody at the SCCA, they know who you are. You just send them a quick resume. They send it over to ASUS, and it's done.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
was
the ring permit
yeah,
part
the
was what,
extra steps for the ring,
yeah.
and I wonder if you go to race at Hockenheim, if they have steps like this, or is it just because the ring is such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, it is Nürburgring specific. The permit is the DPN DMSB permit Nordschleife,
Hmm.
and there are 3 levels of it. There's C, B, and A.
Right.
C is essentially means you have an FIA license, and it allows you to run RCN. And so with RCN, you can compete with an FIA license.
Got it.
And then there are 2 ways to earn the B permit. There is a class that is usually held the day before an NLS race, because they know
Right.
that if you have an international series, you have people coming in from all over the world
Sure.
expecting somebody to fly over for a class and then coming back for the race. So they do it right before the race. It's also, part of what makes NLS unique is it's the only time where you run the combined Nordschleife and the Grand Prix circuit. So RCN is run only on the Nordschleife. So
Got it.
because it doesn't need a big pit lane, you use the turn 13 pits, which is the
Sure.
same pit lane that you use for the industry pool. So I was familiar with that area. But there's not many events where they combine the
Yeah.
tracks. And
Yeah.
so when they combine the track, they also put in the class. And
Sure.
man, I through my European test driver buddies, one has raced in Nürburgring 24 hour a bunch of times. Like, I tried to pull all sorts of strings to get this B permit without taking the class. And let's just say that after a while, I was informed Formula One drivers have to take this class, therefore you have to take this class.
Well, it's kind of like when Fernando Alonso came over to run the Indianapolis 500. He had to go through rookie orientation, just
Yep.
like if I were trying to run the Indianapolis
Right.
500,
Yeah.
and because you gotta just check off that box, right?
There's no shortcuts. And I later found out that one of the guys that I raced with, when he took his permit class, Kamui Kobayashi was in his class. So once I found out
Cool.
that Kobayashi wasn't getting out of the class, I sort of felt like an idiot for me trying to get
For
out of
asking.
it. Yeah. I'm sure they laughed at me when I asked, but
I would
I
say use my best Colonel Klink voice and say "dumb American" or something.
yeah.
Good stuff.
So yeah, the classes, there's an online portion you have to pass, an e-learning, and then the physical class, there is a classroom, and then it's an on-track component, and a lot of it is about the very specific rules of racing at the Nürburgring. We've gotten in American racing and global endurance racing, we've gotten somewhat used to the terms like code 60s and virtual safety cars, and but a lot of that, the Nürburgring was early in that process.
Right.
I'm not know who the first was, but
Sure.
I know they were very early in that process, because when you combine the track, it's 15 miles. So
Wow.
I've now done an out lap at the track to start the race I did a month ago, and I can tell you it takes 20 minutes. And
Wow.
if you went and did a 4 hour race, and every time there was a wreck, it was a 20-minute yellow, there would never be any green laps. And so the rules that you learn in the class and why they have the class and don't just allow anybody with an international racing license is, there are very specific rules of the flags and the safety zones, because if there is an incident, they will put boots on the ground and they will clean that incident up with a 60K zone, a code 60. So purple flags,
Right.
and they'll mark it with a yellow, and then it's a code 120. So you have to go down to 120 kph. And then that leads into a code 60. And the code 60, the track is broken into, I think there's like 170 marshal posts around the
Got it.
track. And so they can shut down as many sections as they need to clean up the incident. And then you get the green flag and you're back to green. But some of the other rules that are a little bit different to get used to is that, they're being that the track basically runs through the mountains, there's not ingress and egress every mile. And
Right.
so there's only a few points you can get on and off the track, even as a marshal vehicle or a tow truck. And so, they will send a tow truck and it may be 4 kilometers for the tow
Sure.
truck to get to, and they don't shut down every section that the tow truck is in. So one of the things that you're allowed to do, which it seems crazy, but it's a respect thing, and it seems to work well, is your speed is unlimited around safety vehicles, but you can't pass. And so part of the rules is you learn, okay, yes, you can go side by side at 100 miles an hour with a tow truck, just don't screw up and don't pass. And so
So
there's an ebb and a flow.
you might be next to a tow truck for 3 kilometers, but you can't pass them.
No, you can pass them. Yeah, you can pass them at any speed. And so if they will put a blinker on and they stay to that side, and you're allowed to stay full throttle past them.
Wow.
And so it keeps the race moving, but it is a respect thing that, obviously if you need to slow down, they expect you to.
Sure.
But if you can pass them in a safe way, you don't have to slow down. So the way the rule is written is speed is unlimited, but no passing. And so there's also rules for qualifying where you don't have to take the full outlap around the Nordschleife, and then there's technically 2 pit lane entrances. So like if you come in for a pit stop and you feel a vibration, like maybe a wheel's loose, you don't have to drive 15 miles. You're allowed to pit. There's a secondary pit in for the GP track. And so yeah, it's those type of specific rules that they go over in the class, or you kind of you're able to learn through the e-learning and then
Sure.
get the experience through RCN. And so my understanding is a lot of it stems from some, obviously as with most safety related rules, this permit stemmed from incidents.
Sure.
And then the permit was implemented. And so, in 2010, you may have been able to just go over and run with a license, but now it is permitted specifically for the track.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. When I started sim racing, the first track I bought was Road America, my home track. The second track I bought was Nürburgring.
Yeah.
And I went and did a documentary in Germany. It was not to bring the show down. It was a Holocaust documentary, and on our one day off, I went to Nürburgring just to kind of just see it and be there, and I was like, someday I would love to be able to do something like this. So I'm living a little vicariously through you here.
Bring it on. Yeah.
Which is very, very cool. Before we get to our break and our tech tip this week, which you're actually going to help me with, speaking of sim racing, did you use the sim at all to get ready? Because you had been a couple of years since you'd been there and you didn't do any racing when you were there the first time. Did you use the sim at all to kind of get ready for this whole thing last year and this year?
Yeah, a ton. Yeah. Especially this year. Well, really both years, but this year, the car that we were racing, the M4 GT4 BMW is in iRacing. And so it's even easier because it's the same car, same track. Last year I used, we were in a BMW M240i. So it's basically, the spec touring car BMW from like 1819
like
generation.
the DTM car, right?
No, below that, slower. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So it's about 40 seconds a lap slower than a GT4 car.
Got it.
So that's one thing that's crazy about the Nürburgring is the GT4 is a fast car. The GT3s are about 40 seconds a lap faster than the GT4s. The BMWs that we were driving last year are about 40 seconds slower than the GT4s. And there's cars that are slower than those BMWs. So you have cars that are like minutes apart in pace.
Well,
But yes, to
and
your answer, yeah, I use the sim a ton.
and what's interesting about that is if you were at Road America, those cars would be 3 seconds a lap different. But because it's a 15 friggin' mile
Right.
lap, because
Yeah.
the lap is legit three and a half times longer than Road
Right.
America, that's how you get that ginormous gap lap time wise. It just
Yeah, you have to recalibrate,
yeah,
on this trip that we just went on. We got a lot of seat time, and like I said, we'll get into more of the details,
yeah,
but I mean, we got an amazing amount of seat time for one trip, one race. I mean, but ultimately, when you look back on it, I think I did 22 laps, which is,
sure,
doesn't sound like a big number. And then you put it in miles and you're like, oh, I drove a lot,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
just, you have to get used to, you could go over there and do one stint, and one stint is 8 laps.
yeah,
And 8 laps just doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it by 15 and
yeah.
you realize that you did, over 100 miles. And,
Wow,
um, but you have to recalibrate some of the lap time differences,
right,
when you're a competitive driver and you're trying to do well, you're not used to being 4 seconds slower than somebody, or 3 seconds, or two. And, if you get within an experienced German pro driver and you're within a second or two, that's kind of like being within
yeah,
half a second or 4/10 or something,
right,
on a normal length track. And so you everything gets expanded.
yeah.
The lap length, the lap time, the deltas, and so yeah, you have to, in a lot of ways, change your mentality. But also, if you think about it from like a fuel saving point of view, it's not really a thing there, because you can't gain a 15-mile lap. It
No,
would be like doing an IMSA stint and you try to
yeah,
save 7 laps of fuel. Like, if you get
exactly,
yourself from, you can do 8.2 laps to 8.7, that's still 8 laps.
right.
It's still not nine.
Except that
So
when you're trying to fuel save, even if you have to fuel save a quarter of a lap, if you run out of gas a quarter of a lap before the end at the ring,
yeah,
you're 2.5 miles or three
you're
miles
still
from
you're
pit
still
lane.
miles from home. You
So
ain't
there
pushing
must still be a
it.
little bit of fuel saving, right? Just for like that type of an occurrence.
Sure, yeah. I mean, but you have to be close to the number. So
Right.
if you
Right.
can do like 8.2 laps, there is no point in fuel saving. If
Right.
you could do 8.8, then maybe you can fuel
Sure.
save. It's
Sure.
just,
Sure.
yeah, we had some of these conversations about, when we were there this past time, about like how long a stint we could do, and we did testing. The team was basically like, well, fuel save's not an option.
Right. Right.
And it was, for that reason.
So you've got 22 laps of actual racing, and then whatever you've done in the sim. Do you ever really have a 15-mile lap in your brain, like to really understand where everything goes?
Yes. Yeah,
That's just
I mean, it took a long time. I put a lot of effort. So I went to the Nürburgring one time before I got to go to work. So I went on a family trip in 2013, and it was, my brother had just graduated from college, and me and my parents and my brother and my wife went to Europe. And my mom kind of pulled us like, okay, we're gonna go to like Germany and France. Where do you guys want to go? And I'm like, Nurburgring. And so I pretty quickly, and my dad was on board, and so we incorporated that into the trip. And same sort of thing as when I went for work. I thought, I just wanted to see the place. Like,
right.
I mean, and I did a tourist session, and I thought, well, I mean, this is the end all be all. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I'll never be one of those test drivers, or I'll never get to race. And like, so, I mean, it's each time I've gone, it's kind of been, you treat it like appreciate it like it's the last, because it's a difficult place to get to and to
Yeah.
be able to experience. And you can also go there and have horrendous weather. I mean, it is in the mountains in Germany. You can have all sorts of things that make a trip like that go wrong. And so
Right.
I appreciate every good lap that I get there. But yeah, I put a lot of effort, actually, before I went on that trip, I used the PlayStation, and I had it memorized in the PlayStation, which
Wow.
probably, made it more dangerous when I was doing the tour session in some ways, because I was a little bit of the classic American who thinks he can drive, who learned it in the PlayStation. But each time I've gone there, I mean, like, so now, I mean, I can sit here and visualize a whole lap, and
Yeah.
I have it down in my head, what curbs I can use, where, in different cars, where might be a lift, a brake, this, like different inputs. And, I don't have it memorized to every bump, like
Right.
there are, when I go back, there are times like, okay, there's that bump that affects this corner entry. I have some in my head, and I have a ton of notes I've written down on track maps and kind of try to document what I learned. But it's, I mean, I have done thousands of laps in the simulator. I mean, I've got a lot of butt in
And
simulator
you're
time
still
on.
married.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Because thousands
Uh,
of laps on a 15-mile lap
yeah.
is a lot of time.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
What I actually focused on more this past time was, and it's something that Denny and Judson and I have been doing more together, in working with Judson, but Denny and I working together as well, is we've been doing hosted sessions
Sure.
together, and we get BMWs out there, and we drive together. But Denny and I have also done some sessions of, a big leap for me, because you mentioned it, was, I have been on track with other cars at the ring, but I've never actually raced anybody. I've
Right.
never actually had, until this past trip, okay, I am behind a car. I have 15 miles and I would like to be ahead of that car, or vice versa. I want to keep them behind me. And
Right. Right.
it does change the dynamic, because, it's, for me, it's been more of a time trial, a test track. And it is different when you are in the heat of battle, and the consequences are big there,
Yeah.
and there's places you don't want to make a mistake, especially because the license is so hard to get.
Yeah.
As hard as it is to get, it's amazingly easy to get it taken away.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
really don't want mine taken away.
So,
um
so let's dig into stuff like that after our break and talk about like
Sounds good.
how do you learn which corners and how to defend a particular corner when you only see that corner 22 times in a race. We'll dig into that, and you could kind of give me the impression of what it's like to race around this racetrack. We'll do all of that after my short little break to say thank you to our partners, and then our tech tip, which is coming up in just a second as well. So let's do this. Solar Performance Specialties. If you look over my shoulder, and I pointed correctly again, I'm getting used to this, Dave. They are one of our awesome partners, been with us now for a couple of years. They are here for all of the solo and autocross community, and we really appreciate all that Dave and his family do and his crew of workers. They show up at a lot of the Solo National events, and are there as well at the Solo Nationals. And if you don't see him at one of those events, you can always go to their website, which of course is in the show notes as well. And then, of course, raceschool.com, we're just wrapping up our partnership with them. They were our presenting sponsor, and we had a real great time working with them over the last year. Appreciate everything that they do. If you need a race school, check out raceschool.com out here in Southern California. Great opportunity for some really unique ways that they teach that's very different from a lot of other schools. So it'd be really cool if you check them out as well. Popping up next, we talked a little bit about sim racing. I believe the next logo that's going to pop up is Ray Esports. Ray Esports is the official. Oh, no, actually, we'll get to Ray in a second. It's William R. Pinterick and Associates. Dave Pinterick, one of our racers, is helping us out here as well. He is a GT1 driver, Spec MS5 driver. He's also really good at helping people manage their money. And if you're getting ready to retire, or even think you may want to retire someday and don't know how to get that little nest egg put together, Dave's the guy to go to and help you with that. Smart guy, great guy, one of our own, and it's great to have him as part of our deal here. And then, of course, we have Ray Esports, the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. They've got Weekend Warrior races in Formula F. I still call it Formula Ford. Spec Racer Ford and Formula V, which is the one I play around with on Saturdays. They also have a Tuesday night league as well. So check out Ray Esports, and all of their stuff is of course in our show notes. And then our newest partner is Babyface Fabrication, and I'm going to bring Dave back here for this portion here. Babyface Fabrication is our sponsor of our tech tip. So for the next year, we're going to have a tech tip, and really thankful for them for being with us there. Babyface Fabrication, roll cages, pretty much anything that needs to be fabricated. They're based out of North Carolina. Check them out. They've got their cages are in a bunch of the B-Spec cars that are out on SCCA races. So really good people there. So tech tip, Dave, you are a tire guy, many years working with Goodyear, testing tires. So I said, I've got a tech guy on the show. We might as well take advantage of your expertise. And we talked a little bit. So we were going to talk about tonight, when you're just starting out in this, there's so much stuff that you have to learn, not only just where to point the car, but there's the tech side of setting up a car, and it can be hard for people. One of the easiest things that you can change on your car that can change the handling of your car is tire pressures. And you said something that was very interesting to me and what was your suggestion for kind of learning how tire pressures work?
Yeah, so I think that the classic way a lot of people get their initial tire pressure set up on a new race car when they're new to racing is they ask somebody and they run whatever that person tells them. And
right.
That's not, that is better than just making up a number yourself. But I think that if you want to learn how people get to that number, that the best thing you can do is experiment. And so you take that nominal value. So, I race a Spec Racer Ford, so there's a lot of information out there. And if you go ask anybody, they'll tell you what their cold pressure is and what their hot pressure is. But there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of drivers that have never run anything different than that number. And I would say subtract a safe number. You can get too low. So you need to make sure that you're not going below something that the manufacturer would want you to run. And go, if that's 5 below and 5 above, and see what happens. Evaluate for yourself why and what that proper tire pressure should be. And so you can start with bigger swings. I've done tire pressure sweeps when I was autocrossing. I've done it on my Spec Racer Ford. I've done it on endurance cars because in WRL we run different manufacturers and we don't always run the same inflation. And so, my overall tip would be, take the information that people give you, take it with a grain of salt, but then also experiment for yourself and try to build an understanding of what the raising or lowering of tire pressure does to your car, from the way that it changes the grip, to the way that it changes how stiff the tire feels, and to the way that it changes the response, and then therefore maybe the balance of your car. Take some notes, and as you go to some test days, if you don't have something to test and you don't have something to try, raise your tire pressures 3 psi or drop them 3 psi and go and see what happens, and build a database for yourself of not only what that feels like, but what you and your car like.
I think that in my mind, and I got a quick story that actually kind of supports this, and it just popped into my head. You need a lot of laps to understand, to be able to feel what a 1 PSI change feels like. So that's why I think the big swing is good, because at least you'll start to trust what it's going to feel like, even if you can't feel it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And on, it's not just a tire specific, but also from a driver learning. And it's something I do with the drivers that I coach is, especially when you're in a spec car where there's so much information and there's teams that set cars up, and there's this kind of baked in, this is the setup that all the fast drivers run. You don't learn by making a 1-click change on your dampers, a 1 PSI
Right.
change on your tires. And I've done it for myself. I've done it training at Goodyear. I've done it with drivers I trained at Goodyear. I've done it coaching in the racing world of, you've got the normal PSI in your front tires and 40 in the rear, and we're
Yeah.
going to find out what that feels like.
Yeah.
And it helps you to learn, because one of the big struggles, with any new driver and really anybody who's trying to get better as a driver, whatever level you're at, is improving your feel. And I'm a big believer in you improve that feel by making you feel different things. And
Yeah.
so it's a lot easier to add 10 PSI to your tires than it is to change springs.
Yes.
So you can make anti-roll bar adjustments, you can make damper adjustments, and you learn what that feels like. Run your dampers on full stiff and run them on full stop, and you will see what a damper does to a car. And then it'll help you over time build an understanding of, I'm feeling this in the car. Maybe I do need 2 clicks of a front rebound, or I do need, a 2 PSI less on the front tire, or something like that.
I went to Solo Nationals the last 2 years with my Honda Fit, and my my exercise and futility with that car is well documented, so I won't really tell anybody that story again. Go back and watch some of the old podcasts. I've gone over this a lot, but one of the things that was blow my mind moment, and it's exactly what you're talking about. In autocross, we bank up those tire pressures, and you do wildly weird tire pressures that are nowhere near necessarily what the side of the tire says they should be. And I was told, you've got to run a lot of tire pressure in the rear on this front wheel drive car. And so I go to 45, and I'm thinking, it says 32, 45 feels like a lot to me. And nothing really seemed to change. The car didn't do anything. And someone said to me, "Oh, you aren't even close. You've got to run like 75 in the rear." And I'm like, I literally looked at this guy and said, "Your brain did you do a lot of coke? I mean, what was it, acid in college? What is, and I'm like, 75 can't be right." Yeah. So on my last run at Solo Nationals, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to 75 because with my luck, I'll literally run the tire off the bead of the car. Yeah. I went to 65, and on the first corner, the car rotated for the first time ever in the back, and I was completely blown away. And you've done autocrossing. You've got like 75 seconds in a run, and when your car does something for the first time ever on the first corner of your last run at Solo Nationals, you've got some decisions to make, but you don't have a lot of time to make it. Yeah. So you have to decide, okay, did that happen because I made a mistake, or is that something I could trust to happen on the next corner, which is 3 seconds away? Right. And I'm really proud of myself. My run time still sucked, but I was able to make the decision quickly enough to take advantage of, I'm going to trust that this might happen again. And then when it happened the second time, I was like, holy crap.
This is something I can use now.
I can rely on this now. Right. And I cut 7.5 seconds on my final run. That's how bad the car is, by the way, and how bad I am. So maybe that's a testament to a lot of different badness. But when you can correct 7 seconds in one run, it was that was literally, and it was because I had never trusted or thought about taking that big swing, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think it's an underutilized tool in learning how to tune a car, learning how to feel what your car does and reacts to certain changes. And I think we're wired to try to make these small changes because it's also, we're used to watching IndyCar and Formula One and sports cars, and
a quarter PSI.
we idolize these stories of drivers that the quarter PSI change, which, look, I can tell you, I can't feel a quarter PSI change, and I tested tires for 15 years. Like, I mean, I can barely feel a 1 PSI change. So depends on the car, but yes, the big changes help you dial that feeling in. Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, that's our tech tip, brought to you by Babyface Fabrication. Thank you, Dave, for helping me out with that. Great conversation. And we're actually going to break out the tech tips into small nuggets and post them also just as tech tips on the channel. but so
Okay,
people
cool.
don't have to go through the whole shows to get to the tech tips. But we're going to get 3 or 4 of them in the can and start doing that as well. So cool new feature, really cool. And it's something I've always wanted to do on the show. And now 5 years in, we're going to do it. And
There we go.
lots of tech to deal with. All right, let's get back to the Nürburgring. And I'm going to break my rule because we got 15 minutes left if we want to end in an hour.
There we go.
We're going to go a little bit over, but let's try to keep it into 15 minutes here. Can you tell me, and I don't think we can go turn by turn. Can we kind of go through what a lap is like on the ring?
Sure.
And from 2 standpoints. One, the holy shit, I'm racing at Nürburgring part of it, and then the actual mechanics of getting around that place in a lap.
Yeah. So the lap is really like it's broken into 2 unequal parts when you're racing there in the NLS, because you have the Grand Prix track and then you have the Nordschleife, and the Nordschleife is 12.3 or something like that of the 15 miles. And so the Grand Prix track is more of a standard circuit. It's wide, it's smooth, it has curbs you can use, it has some straightaways, it has a few passing zones that are still kind of tough. But the Grand Prix track is where you can drive the car fully at the limit with comfort and feel like you're on a normal racetrack. And then every time I take, I say every time like I've done it a ton, but every time I have done it, when I take the left turn from the Grand Prix track, I feel like I'm dropping into a roller coaster. And so you start in the turn 13 complex, and you have a left-hander, you go downhill before the Atzenbach section, and then you feel like you're on a toge, like a mountain road, and there's guardrails, and like the vision goes in, and you're locked into a slightly different style of driving. The track is very bumpy, and it doesn't reward the latest braking and being aggressive on the car like maybe the Grand Prix track and a more traditional track would. It's really, you're trying to keep the momentum up, and you end up braking a little bit lighter, because one mistake, not only can it punish you in the sense of some lap time, but it can punish you a lot more than just lap time, because the margin is so much smaller. So I find myself like kind of having 2 modes between the 2 different sides of the track. And
that's got to be kind of cool, because it gives you almost a brain reset, because if you had that long mode, like the 12 miles over without that thing, it can almost probably get a little, I use the word mundane.
Yeah.
But
probably not, but yeah, it is like doing 2 different disciplines at the same time. It's one's like a hill climb, and one's like a traditional road circuit. And there are corners around the Nordschleife where you have some usable curb you can attack. There might be a little bit of runoff that you brake a little bit later, brake a little bit harder. But then there's sections that are just like, one of the challenging things, as any driver learns, is when you have linked corner sections that, you're not fully tracking out, getting the car stable, then braking, then another corner. Like you're just constantly left, right, curb, back and forth. And if you get out of rhythm, it's kind of like a slalom in a way of it's like a 100 cone slalom. If you get out of rhythm at cone 8, cone 99 is not going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And there are sections of the Nordschleife that feel very like rhythm section, like you have to get in that flow of the car kind of moving left and right and constant direction change and using the bumps and how they upset the car. But you get a couple of resets, because there's a couple of straightaways where you can kind of catch your breath and then get prepared for the next section. But the Nordschleife, even though, like I said, it is kind of gives you that roller coaster feel, there are a few like highlight corners where you feel like, especially if you're building up to a qualifying lap or you need to get some pace, there are some very fast corners that you kind of like, cinch up the belts and let's explore the limit. So Flugplatz is one of those corners. So that's the famous corner that people think of as the flying place, but I think there was an airport off to the left, which is why it was called that. But it's you crest, and in the GT4 car you're cresting at about 125, 130, maybe 135 miles an hour, something like that. And then, you know, on new tires on a qualifying lap, your mid corner speed can be close to 120 miles an hour, kind of double apex, but it also leads on to a quote unquote straightaway that isn't remotely straight, but you're full throttle for this whole section before the next big fast corner into Schwedenkreuz. And, you know, a big crest with you're braking from 170 with a mid corner speed of 135 to 140 miles an hour. And there's very little runoff, and there's 1,000 videos on YouTube of people wrecking cars there. So it's a very challenging place to kind of build up to. So it is um, it is still an amazing mix of corners of low and high speed and technical and rhythm, and that it is um, an incredible challenge, and it is really hard to whittle that time away because you know, if you leave a tenth in every corner, it can add up to like 5, 6, 7 seconds. And then there's corners where, you know, just from a testicular fortitude point of view, it's pretty easy to leave more than that on the table.
Oh yeah.
So it's yeah, and then when you add in racing and where you can pass and that sort of thing, it becomes even more of a challenge. But then when you think about if you you know, as drivers, we're used to trying to optimize lap on lap, and so you know, as the tire pressures build and the car changes a little bit, you know, you're trying to adjust to the car. But then, you know, from what you're learning of how to go faster, you know, we're used to every 2 minutes you get to try that corner again, and now it's every 8 or 9 minutes, and depending on the car, it could be 10 minutes, and you may only get to try it 8 times that day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the mental preparation, the visualization, the simulator, watching your video, it becomes, you know, almost even more critical at a place like the Nürburgring, because you don't get to go try it 100 times
Right.
in a day. Where at Lime Rock you might be able to. The Nürburgring is just not possible.
And we've talked about that, even going from, let's say, a Mid-Ohio to a Road America. Whereas, you know, at Mid-Ohio, you're going to do a race and you're probably going to get, in the SCCA, for instance, you'll get 13 laps or 14 laps. And so if there are 3 good passing zones at Mid-Ohio and it's 14-lap race, you're going to get to hit those, the math, I guess, is 42 times. You're going to get 42
Right.
shots at it. If there's 3 good passing zones at Road America and it's an 8-lap race, now you've cut your opportunities in half.
Right.
You know, and now to use that analogy and talking about how many passing zones, but you only get 22 laps at Nürburgring.
Right.
It's really,
Yeah. So a normal race stint is 7 to 9 laps depending on the car, and there's the primary passing zones are at the end of the Dottinger, the end of the really long straightaway into Tiergarten. You can pass into turn 1 on the Grand Prix track. You can pass into depending on what layout of the Grand Prix track, you can pass into I think it's the Dunlop hairpin or the shortcut hairpin. The chicane, you know, you could pass somebody there, but then once you get into the Nordschleife, you go through sections where there's miles where they have to make a mistake. And but also, if they make a mistake, they may end up ping-ponging between Armco, not just, you know, the easy run wide and let you pass. And so there is an element of trust too of the drivers you're around. And so you know, you know, now having done it, if you're behind an experienced driver, you know, there are absolutely sections where you're going to be stuck there for half a lap, but
Right.
half a lap is now 4 or 5 minutes before you get to, you know, the Kesselton straightaway into Mutt Curve but yeah, there's very few opportunities to pass without somebody making a mistake. If they stay on rhythm, you are going to be behind them, basically, you know, because the Dottinger and the GP track are right next to each other. So you actually, it's fairly easy to get stuck behind somebody for 7 minutes until you get back to the Dottinger, take a second shot or a third shot on the Grand Prix track, and then you enter the Nordschleife again at turn 13, and it's, you know, looking at their bumper for 6 minutes. But I think that's also why you see some of the incidents you see there, is because it is hard not to get frustrated, because you know that sometimes bucket loads of lap time are leaving,
Yeah.
or, are exiting stage right, and you have the smart decision, which is just to let that happen. But then there's the devil sitting
Mm-hmm.
on that shoulder going, you can make the pass there. You can do it. You can do it. But that is one of the things that Denny and I worked together in the sim is
Yeah.
we ran nose to tail I would lead for 2 laps. He would lead for 2 laps, and we would just try to pass each other. We were running close enough lap times where we were like trying to simulate, a class competitor
Mm-hmm.
running that lap time. And, we wrecked each other 5, 6, 7 times and trying to make certain passes and go, you know what, that's not one we're going to do in real life,
Yep.
but that's why we tried it in the sim. And basically distilled it down to, Kesselchen straightaway, if you can get a run, the Dottinger and the Grand Prix track. And everywhere else is you pass out of class cars. And if you're behind somebody that you can't get by, you sit there until they make a mistake, basically.
I hadn't thought about the mental mindset change until we just had this conversation. We're all racers. We want to go fast. We want to get around the guy in front of you or the gal in front of you, and or keep someone behind you the whole time. And that the whole thought process, though, it's got to be different, in how you approach passing and where patience is not a race car driver's best
No,
tool. It's not like in the
no,
toolbox you've got like big drawers and you've got little tiny drawers where they put like the picks. Patience
right.
is usually in the little tiny drawer,
It's the little tiny, yeah, yeah,
and to have a toolbox patience big drawer, which sounds like you have to have a really big drawer of patience when you go there.
you do. Well, and also it's, the track is narrow on the Nordschleife, and so it's really only about 2 lanes wide. And
Mm.
so, maybe a little bit more in certain areas, but it means that the drivers with experience or have done their homework, it's not hard to move your car a half a width, to the left or to the right and make that pass impossible, even when somebody has a run. And
Yeah.
so, Denny and I both experienced it in our stints in July where there were, close either for the overall or class competitors that I had a run and the door got closed in a way that made that run not possible. And you can use it to your advantage. So if you are trying to keep somebody from behind you, it's one of the best places in the world to keep somebody
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah.
If you're trying to pass somebody, it can be one of the more frustrating places, on planet Earth to try to pass somebody.
So considering it's only two car widths wide, you're also having to deal with the fact that if you're in a GT4 car, there are a lot faster cars on this racetrack. And
Right.
they're going to want to pass you, and they're not going to want to wait for
Yeah,
a good passing zone.
And so that is the thing that I haven't done, because the race that we did was a new format that they were trying. It's called NLS Lite, and NLS Lite is basically meant to be a more grassroots version of the NLS series. And so that's why I was able to run a GT4 car with a B permit, because there were no GT3s and no Porsche Cup cars.
Got it.
So I'm actually going back in September with Russ Turner, who you've had on the show, and the Spec Racer Ford national champion. And he and I are sharing a car, and we are, it's a double race weekend on September 13th and 14th. And we're running with Team Black Falcon again. And we are, the goal is to get our A permit to be able to race a GT4 car in the future if the opportunity presents itself. And because the piece of the puzzle that I don't have experience on is I'm one of the faster cars, but I am not the apex predator. The
Sure.
GT3s are the apex predators.
Right.
And when you are then passing, if you look at a field of 120 cars, the GT4s are faster than 90 of them or 80 of them.
Right.
But there's still 30 cars out there that are faster than us, and
Yeah.
and not by an insubstantial margin. And so now you're looking both ways, and you're dealing with the flashing lights and
Yeah.
a frustrated factory pro Porsche driver. And I dealt with it some this time of, when you get up to two slower class cars that are battling, they can block the whole track, and you can sit there and you go, I mean, there's nowhere but the grass. And that's why, there are famous videos of guys like Kevin Estra passing people in the grass because he decided, you know what? Yeah, I got to do this. And
Yeah.
so there's the only other option. So I will gain that experience in September, but it is what makes the place even more challenging.
It kind of sounds like you're describing Isle of Man for race cars.
I mean, a motorbike guy would probably say Isle of Man, trumps everything. But
Sure.
like, I mean, it's certainly,
Yeah.
in ways, it is our version of that.
Yeah.
Of it is, yeah. To me, it always feels like I'm racing on, a country road through the mountains in Virginia or something like that, where you're
Yeah.
just thinking like this. This is what we all want to do on the tail of the dragon.
Exactly.
But there's those freaking speed limit signs
Dang
that
it.
keep us from doing it,
Right.
but it is, to me, it very much has that feel. And I think therefore it shakes a little bit different mentality of, momentum and rolling speed, and not, you know, absolutely, the braking as late as you can, being rougher on the, you're trying to be a little gentler and keep the momentum up versus maximizing every braking zone, braking as late as possible, and then getting caught out on a bump or a curb or
Yeah.
something that upsets the car. You're trying to keep the car flat and keep the car rolling.
I don't think we've probably scratched the surface of this discussion. And so let's do this. Let's talk again in October or November. And
Okay.
after you go
That
back
sounds great.
and do it again. And
Okay.
let's finish this thing up with just your, talk about briefly,
Okay.
which is, I don't even know why I
I'll
even
try.
asked that, because I wouldn't be able to talk about it briefly. As a car person, as a racer, you have those moments. We've talked about this as the bucket list. Is there another bucket list that can top this bucket list?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of things that are attainable for us. I mean, obviously, a Monaco
don't-
Grand Prix would be great, but you and I aren't
Sure.
going to do that. So
Yeah.
for
It's
Yeah.
an interesting, I feel like I'm at a little bit of a place in my career where there's some like imposter syndrome going on. Some of my bucket list items, I've always, if people had asked like over the past, since I started road racing, kind of what my dreams were. It was always win the runoffs and compete in a pro race. I haven't quite won the runoffs, come close, but I've gotten to experience the podium, and I love the runoffs. I love that event, and I love, the SCCA club racing and the Spec Racer Ford in particular. But earlier this year, I had the opportunity with Lupi Tortilla Motorsports to compete in SRO GT4 America. I did 2 races with Judson, and now with running an NLS, which you could call kind of a hybrid pro series. Anyway, I think of a pro series as something that is unattainable to me to, basically write the check and fund and go do. So in a lot of ways, this year has been, and the past couple of years have been something that, like, if racing ends for me in 6 months or a year or something goes on and I have to stop, like, I've achieved a lot of the things that I kind of set out to do. And I've had moments where you kind of get emotional in the car. And there's been a couple of specific moments, and a lot of them happened this year, of finishing qualifying at Sonoma and GT4. And there's, a sea of people taking photos of the car, and just thinking like, I was the person taking the photo, and now I'm the
Yeah.
person in the car, and how in the F did I get here? And I had that moment at the Nürburgring, because I went to an NLS race when I was there for the industry pool, and I did the grid walk, and I saw the cars, and I thought, this is the coolest freaking racing series in the world. Because, again, like you said, there's whole other topics on this that we could go into.
Yeah.
Like, in open practice, for the race that I did in July, one of my best friends at Goodyear test driver, his name's Yama, lives in Dubai now. He flew to the Nürburgring from Dubai to meet us for this race.
Yes.
And you think, like, that's cool. You have a buddy, you come out to a race. But not only did he get to do that, well, in practice, the team put a seat in the passenger seat, bolted him into the car, and he did 2 practice laps with me.
Oh, that's so cool.
and he and I have that experience now of
Yeah.
this thing that we shared that's just like, I don't know if they don't have lawyers there, but like I'm not asking questions. So, uh, but when I got to do that with Yama and I drove the car to the grid because I got to start the NLS race, and you've got a mechanic kind of guiding your car, and because there were no GT3s, we were pretty far up, like qualified fourth, so we were towards the front of the grid, and there's 5,000 people, 3,000, whatever the number is, and you gotta, like, the C's have to part for the car to get parked, and you get out, and it's just like, I have no clue how I got here.
Yeah.
And so as far as the next bucket list, I've kind of stopped thinking about it. I'll just ride the wave and we'll see what comes next.
I asked that question in that specific manner because I have a follow-up.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm going to pontificate for a moment. When I started this podcast, it was a very humble thing. I wanted to sit and talk to people and talk about cars because that's what I love to do. And it has opened so many doors for me and things that I never imagined I'd be able to get to experience and go do. And while I had bucket lists as well, when you knock off one of the big ones, for me, it reset my brain that why was that only my bucket list and
Right.
what else is out there? And the moment for me that really put this in my brain, and you were part of it, I'm at the Goodyear Proving Grounds driving a car on a place that not many people get a chance to do.
Right.
When I came out to drive the spec Mustang or whatever we call it, club spec Mustang car, and that was like a really big moment for me, just as a car person and a bucket list and a mindset, because I said to myself, wow, I was able to get myself into this spot. I need to stop putting limits on what my spots are that I could get myself into in my brain, because who the F knows when the next phone call is going to happen? Who's going to say, I'd like you to go do this? And a whole lot of things unlocked for me on trying to just go have fun and enjoy life and not limiting my brain as to what that expectation is. And I kind of hope for you that that's what's happening right now, that you've hit this thing that you thought was the holy grail, and you're a young guy compared to me. You got a lot of holy grails still out there that you could get to. And that's pretty cool.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm it's a combination of trying to be ambitious but also happy with and it's a balance because but 100%. I mean, it was well said. So I have reset some of my goals, but also if they don't get achieved, I can be very happy with what has happened.
No, I get that completely. All right, this is the part of the show where, and I know you've got some thank yous because you've already dropped the names a bunch of times, but this is the part of the show where I let you thank all the people that help you do what you got to do.
Yeah, so Lupe Tortilla and Judson Holt, big supporters of mine, and we've become really close. And he's opened up a lot of doors for me in the racing world, and my teammates Denny and Russ, and then also Sim Seats. Got the T-shirt on, so my simulator in the background. So they're a personal sponsor, Goodyear did support me for many years, and I appreciate that everything that Goodyear has done for me. And then also Tom Dalrymple Racing Services. Tom is still one of my best friends in racing, and actually I was supposed to call him. He texted me, told me to call him right for this podcast. I probably should call him.
Yeah.
Probably complaining to me about something that I did on my car or whatever. But we're getting the spec racer prep for a race at Eagles Canyon in a few weeks. So
nice.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
It's always fun having you on. The stories are never ending and awesome. And we could talk about this for another 2 hours, so we'll have to do it again. So, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the SCCA. If you enjoyed what you watched here, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out the podcast, leave some comments about this. What's your bucket list track? What is the thing that you would love to get to go do? Put it out there and manifest that a little bit, and you never know when something like that can come true. So leave comments on that. Also, if you want us to do a particular tech tip on a particular subject, put that in the comments as well. So I will go through those, and I'm the one good thing one of my skills, one of my superpowers is finding the right experts to talk to and getting them on the show. So I love doing that. So let's do that as well. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a great week. Stay safe and go play with cars.